we'll make a discussion on there's not really a word for this. So say that you are in like a cavern, or or equivalent would be visiting a pyramid, or a, you know, one natural wonder from the ancient times, right? You can see that many of these uh, former buildings. They're very, some of it's destroyed, and some of it's a hollow shell of what it used to be. Um, but you could see a lot of you know things written on it that are of an ancient language. Um, basically, there's clearly evidence that there was civilization here, but the topic is about you know kinds of people exist in many different settings and terrains. Um, One could create a map for it, but the problem is in the afterlife. Um, um, uh, you could make a map for it, but you could easily, with very little effort, it's not limited the way that it is here on Earth in the physical. Um, uh, Earth in the physical world has lots of people who, for the most part, their ignorance, not really ignorance, but there are various reasons why you cannot just, you know, get in an airport and get to any country if you want. There's clearly restrictions for various reasons. It is not like that on the afterlife. It is not like that in various science fiction books. But it got me thinking about the idea of a communications network. Um, Before cell phones were invented, there was a telephone, but before that, there was Morse code. Um, it got me thinking about the idea of why a lot of people are so opposed to texting. I mean, texting is a necessity. It is much faster and much more convenient than relying on snail mail. It can be, it is convenient the way email is, but again, there's a part in the human brain that is not wired for the neurotransmitters, or whatever the brain chemical processes are just not. Texting is something about texting that I think a lot of people are just opposed to, especially if they're stressed out. They really like the idea of hearing someone's voice, and this is why something like Morse code. You know, what is Morse code? Morse code is um, used in warfare prior to the invention of cell phones. Um, because cell phones required a bunch of other things. But before the technology required to make cell phones existed, people used Morse code to communicate, and not get caught during warfare. One would disguise themselves as someone in the other country, and remain there undetected. They're a completely different nationality. So, and you would use Morse code to not to prevent to not have to speak because especially with the advent of telephones being invented, one had to be careful not to uh, accidentally say something in their language. It is not also difficult. Um, but to build a communications network is something that we can extend this to the realm of pure science fiction. Um, Science fiction has a lot of is a genre that has their unique audience of their own. but it is is because of you know um, various innovations and various social science. I call it social science in lieu of saying business, but a corporation. But but again, human society can be very complex. Um, Religion is also complex on its own because it is not that different in many ways. Religion tries to incorporate a communications network of its own, where religion began before the inventions, before all these convenient inventions, before toilets, before a decent water decent water filtration, for not having people be dead of you know various bacterial infections from drinking water was not adequately filtered. Um, Religion was invented way before that. It was invented before gunpowder. It was invented before the printing press. Religion has existed before the invention of the printing press. Religion existed before printing press expanded to the point where commoners could read books, um, regardless of not have to rely on scrolls, because a lot of people before a certain year in world history was illiterate, um, could not read. Let's see, but religion existed before all those things. Religion, is almost like a group membership of its own, but it is, you know, a little more exclusive than a fraternity, for example, or sorority. It is definitely more exclusive than. It is definitely less exclusive, not more exclusive, less exclusive than universities prior to, say, 1900, right? So, or 1899. Before that, universities were exclusive to those that could afford it, and in many cases, uh, exclusive to those that of a certain group, family or ethnic group or whatever, right? So, for what? So let's see here. Um, to build a communications network, or extend it, one has to imagine all these possibilities. So, for example, on Earth, anyone who has studied world history will understand that prior to 1865, the vast majority of people did not live in the cities. The vast majority of people lived in rural farms and countries. You know, because that was just how it is. After 1865, a lot of people migrated to the cities, and the cities became um, uh, places where there was a lot of communication networks that began. Um, and with the there was a huge amount of people pioneering in different fields after 1865. There was an explosion of different inventors, niches. Um, you know, for example, if you went to a big university, you would see that there's not just fraternities and sororities, but there's a ton of clubs, right? Um, you Not just that. There was just conventions of hobbyists, all sorts of places, right? The internet has a huge amount of websites. The internet has a huge amount of social, private networks, social networks of its own. Um, there's a ton of choices one could make with their money, um, and that's the thing. Prior to 1865, which a significant amount of people, um, a significant amount of souls, this is the first incarnation of Earth. They chose to be born between the, say, 1970 and 2015, right? So I'm gonna assume that The average audience viewing this video is 9 years old or older, and most likely between. If I were to have a YouTube channel with a considerable amount of viewers, the average audience would probably be between 16 years and 39, right, or 42, 42, 43 years, right. So that is a range or a standard deviation, right. So the idea of a communications network, it could spring out of any terrain, regardless of regardless of so just imagine being in a underground bunker, or but not like a underground bunker on Earth. No, the idea of underground cities, I've read about that in various fiction novels. Some movies have explored it, some science fiction particularly. It is not about colonizing any planet on it's not about colonizing any planet in the solar system. It's not about extracting any energy from any stars. It is about um, you know it is about uh, yeah, it is not about exploring different um, species that have the capacity to communicate thoughts um, by language. That is not found on Earth, but for the most part. Religion has been invented to explain phenomena to a lot of folks, because first of all, the internet did not exist thousands of years ago. Also, there were tons of uh, conjectures and theorems that had to come up with, because they were just simply too like uh, lots rituals had to occur for a lot of reasons. Um, a lot of it might not make too much sense now today, because there's lots of people. There's a significant population after 1970, people born on Earth that previous incarnations were in a different planet or universe. And of course, particularly significant in some cities over others. Some cities have higher percentage of these migration patterns than others. And this information is not easily accessible to the public. So,